Alrighty gang, hello again, I am Blunty, that's the Nvidia GeForce GTX 1060, and I've done the day zero reveal and unboxing, I've done the full review, the benchmarks and the gameplay. Now it is time to see if this card can live up to Nvidia's claim that this budget-friendly everyman GPU can easily overclock up to, and hopefully past, the 2000 MHz barrier with nothing more than its stock air cooler and its single 6-pin power input. Well, long story short, yes, it sure can. Out of the box, the stock clocks on this card are 1506 MHz stock and 1708 MHz boost. Doing the usual round of number fiddling to try and find a nice stable overclock, I finally landed on a rock-solid stable overclock of 2037 MHz on the core, with zero thermal throttling happening with the standard fan curve, temperatures being kept around 73 degrees C at a relatively quiet 62% fan speed under a full benchmark load, and the power limit pushed up to 116%. I was also able to kick the memory clock speed up another 600 MHz without any issues whatsoever. So yes, overclocking up to and past 2 GHz was a painless task. But chasing bigger and bigger numbers is one thing and fun in its own right, but it's what it does to performance which is the most useful metric for the average gamer. So first off the bat, the Steam VR benchmark. Again, I don't have a headset yet so I can't do any real world VR test, but there's a significant boost even further into the happy green space, moving the result from "your system is performing well enough for high quality VR" to the much more glowing "your system is performing well above what is recommended." Under Firestrike, I saw a noticeable spike in the scores, 1,000 extra points under the standard Firestrike test, 576 extra when asked to push around the extreme variation, and just shy of 360 freebie points under the heel of the Ultra test. And with the freshly released new DX12 Specialist benchmark, Time Spy, I got precisely 400 extra points for a free 10% boost in the score. Not too shabby. But outside of synthetic benchmarks, it's a bit tougher to nail down the precise frame rate differences an overclock can make in real-world gameplay. But in the Forza Motorsport 6 Apex beta, it was anywhere between sort of 5 and 20 FPS faster under an overclock, although some of the time it was honestly a pretty close call. With Doom completely maxed out and utilising the nightmare level settings only even accessible to cards with more than 4 GB of video RAM, the GTX 1060 was already blazingly fast in this game, especially with the Vulkan API, and the overclock handed in anywhere between an extra 10 and 50 frames per second. And while this game on the stock clocks saw relatively regular dips into the 90s, the overclock helped keep it in triple digits almost the entire time. Throwing Just Cause 3 around, there was an average of about 10 frames per second or so boost with the overclock in place, pulling the gameplay more consistently up into the 80 frames per second-ish mark. In The Witcher 3, and just like in my main review, it's maxed out on Ultra and pushed even further by pushing the hairwork setting beyond even Ultra's default settings. The overclock shows a small but pretty consistent gain of about 5 to 10 FPS during normal gameplay. And in Project Cars, interestingly the frame rate didn't get much of a boost at all, oftentimes remaining equal, but sometimes pumping out an extra 5 to 20 frames or so. leading me to believe there's some kind of bottleneck elsewhere in this game's engine. But given that my CPU is a Skylake i5 6600K overclocked to 4.5 GHz, I doubt my CPU is the bottleneck here. But anyway, interesting result nonetheless. Admittedly, with the GTX 1060 already kicking butt all over every game I tested in the past couple of weeks, all completely maxed out, the real world benefit of an overclock like this is relatively minor in a practical sense. But you do get the extra headroom for when, down the line, games do become inevitably even more demanding. And also, while I generally recommend the GTX 1060 as a 1080p brutalizer, the boost from the overclock may be just enough to help you get to 1440p without making any significant compromises on toning down the pretty things. And of course, and perhaps most importantly, stepping up that level in the VR benchmark performance metric is always going to be very welcome, as maintaining extremely solid performance without any dips in frame rate is more vital for VR than in any other experience. It is absolutely essential. So a little bit of extra breathing room thanks to the overclock there is a wonderful thing. All in all though, the story goes like this. Even the stock Founders Edition card will happily and easily overclock to 2000 MHz, and if you're a bit lucky, past that by a chunk. And of course, as many of you out there will know well, the board partners will also have custom board designs with even fancier power delivery and more aggressive coolers, and even chip gauntlet and binning procedures, so I fully expect we'll see GTX 1060s which overclock even deeper into the 2000 MHz realm. So the story of the GTX 1060 only gets even more interesting from here on in. It has already proven itself to be a superb performer right out of the box, and there's a very tantalizing taste of significant overclockability here too. Anyway, I hope this has been useful, or at the very least interesting. I am Blunty, thank you very much for watching, and I will catch you next time.